The vast chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with an alien light that shimmered across thousands of glass-like pillars, each one occupied by a representative from a different world. The air was heavy with a strange hum, a vibration created by countless translators working at once. In the very center of this cosmic cathedral stood a single platform of white metal, illuminated by a circle of golden light. That was where humanity stood for the first time in galactic history. Ambassador Leon Cross adjusted his collar as he looked around. The hall stretched farther than his eyes could follow, filled with faces and forms so diverse they seemed to break the laws of biology. Some creatures floated in energy fields. Others were covered in crystal scales or translucent membranes. Above them all, on a towering balcony, sat the Galactic Council's High Assembly, leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Among them was General Carth Vox of the Valari Dominion, the most feared military commander in the known systems. His eyes were like burning coals, fixed on Leon with quiet contempt. The translator lights blinked green, signaling that all systems were active. The moment humanity had waited for was finally here. Leon took a breath and stepped forward. "Honorable Council," he began, his voice steady and measured. "The people of Earth come not as conquerors, but as partners. We have built peace among our worlds. We seek fair trade and membership within the Council as equals." A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Alien voices layered over one another like static. A being made of vapor twisted its form into a shape of mockery. Another creature with 4 mouths laughed so loud it echoed through the hall. To them, humans were newcomers, primitive, fragile, late to the stars. General Carth Vox rose from his seat. His armor gleamed like black stone, carved with the symbols of 100 conquered worlds. "Humanity," he said, his voice amplified across the hall. "You speak of peace while hiding behind metal and machines. You are nothing more than children playing at diplomacy. Do you truly believe the Council needs you?" Leon didn't flinch. "We believe the galaxy benefits when all are heard." The chamber fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the general descended from the balcony and walked straight toward the center platform. Each step echoed like a hammer against the floor. The guards shifted nervously, unsure whether to intervene. Vox stopped in front of Leon, towering over him. His voice dropped to a growl. "You come here demanding equality?" he said. "Then learn what it means to stand before your betters." Before anyone could react, the Valari general swung his leg in a brutal arc. His boot struck Leon across the face, sending him crashing to the floor. The sound of impact cracked through the chamber like thunder. Gasps filled the air. Cameras floated closer, recording everything. Leon's vision blurred. He tasted blood. Around him, alien delegates stared in shock or amusement. The Valari soldiers behind the general laughed. Vox looked down at him with a cruel smile. "Remember this," he said. "This is your place in the galaxy." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then slowly, Leon pushed himself off the floor. His jaw was bruised, his lip bleeding, but his eyes were calm. He looked straight at the general and said softly, "You have no idea what you've just started." Security drones surrounded him, guiding him out of the chamber. The council's leader, a being of light and shifting colors, called for order, but the hall was already in chaos. Some representatives protested the Valari's violence. Others supported it. The broadcast spread across every major galactic channel within minutes. Billions watched as a human was humiliated before the council. On Earth, in a hidden command center beneath the city of Geneva, President Ilara Hunt stood before a wall of screens showing the live feed. Behind her, military advisors and intelligence officers remained still, waiting for her word. The moment the general's boot connected with Leon's face, the room went cold. The feed ended with Leon being dragged away. The president turned slowly to her defense minister. "Has the data packet been received?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. Ambassador Cross's implant transmitted everything before the broadcast ended. "We now have full scans of the Valari fleet movements, council armament statistics, and their communication codes." "He did it right before the assault." She nodded, her expression unreadable. Then he completed the mission. Another officer hesitated. "Madam President, what are your orders?" The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the holographic displays. The president placed her hands on the table, her voice calm but heavy. Prepare the fleet. Activate Project Aegis. Humanity will not kneel. Across Earth's colonies and orbital stations, coded signals spread like wildfire. The Titan shipyards on Mars began reawakening dormant shipyards buried beneath the planet's crust. The moon's defense grid went into lockdown. Satellites shifted position in the outer system, aligning into unfamiliar formations. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chamber, a debate erupted. Some members demanded the Valari apologize for their aggression. Others called for sanctions against Earth, claiming humanity was unstable. The Council's speaker tried to restore order, but fear was already creeping into the conversation. Humanity's silence after the incident was unnatural. No message of apology, no outrage, no diplomatic protest, nothing. General Vox dismissed the matter with a grin. "Let them hide," he said to his advisors. "They will learn the cost of defiance soon enough." But deep within the Sol system, Earth was not hiding. It was preparing. Ambassador Cross sat in a holding cell aboard a Valari cruiser, the side of his face swollen from the impact. The guard outside ignored him, confident that the human was broken. But Leon was not alone. Hidden in his wrist communicator was a faint pulse, a signal that confirmed his message had reached Earth. He smiled to himself despite the pain. In the dark, he whispered, "They think we're weak." On Mars, Admiral Darius Cole received the president's order. He looked out the window of the command deck, where construction drones assembled the frames of massive starships. The symbol of Earth glowed faintly on each hull, a silver circle with a blue arc. "Begin silent mobilization," he ordered. "Every colony, every ship. No transmissions beyond the inner system. The galaxy must believe we are asleep." "Yes." "Admiral," replied his aide. The stars outside seemed to flicker as the first Titan-class battleship came online, its systems humming with power. Back in the council chamber, General Vox received a report from his scouts. "Human transmissions are down, sir," one officer said. "Their trade routes are abandoned. No traffic beyond their moon." Vox leaned back in his chair, amused. They crawl back to their planet and hide. Typical. He had no idea that at that very moment, far beyond the orbit of Neptune, human satellites were quietly building something enormous in the shadows, a defense network hidden within the asteroid belt, its purpose known only to a few, on Earth. President Hunt stood alone in her office looking out at the stars. The reflection of the council's broadcast still played faintly on the glass. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You kicked a human before the eyes of the galaxy," she said. "Now the galaxy will see what happens when you touch one of us." As night fell across the planet, the quiet hum of awakening machines echoed through the solar system. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was waiting. And somewhere in the cold darkness beyond Mars, a transmission flickered across the void, encoded in silence, but carrying a single message meant for the stars. We remember. The chamber of the Galactic Council pulsed with low light, its enormous dome stretching beyond sight. Thousands of alien delegates shimmered in their seats, their voices blending into a storm of static and whispers. At the center of the floor, surrounded by a halo of pale blue light, stood the empty human podium. No representative from Earth had appeared since the incident. For 3 days, the council waited. For 3 days, the humans remained silent. It was rare for silence to cause fear. But this silence was unnatural. General Carth Vox stood near the edge of the chamber, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the Sol system. 3 days, he muttered. They should have sent another envoy by now, or begged for forgiveness. The Valari Prime Minister, a tall creature with metallic skin, hissed softly. Humans are prideful. They lick their wounds and plan their excuses, Vox smirked. Or they finally learned their place. The council's speaker, a translucent being who spoke through pulses of light, raised its glowing tendrils. Order, it said. The matter of humanity's membership and their refusal to respond must be decided. We cannot allow instability near the core worlds. Delegates from over 100 species began to speak. Some demanded sanctions against Earth, accusing them of defying the Council's authority. Others whispered that perhaps the humans were more dangerous than they had seemed. The incident of the kick was now the most watched recording in galactic history. Every being in the galaxy had seen the moment the human fell and rose again, smiling through blood. At that very moment, far from the shining chamber, the Sol system was changing. On the dark side of the moon, massive hangars opened, revealing silver ships that had been hidden for decades. On Mars, the Titan foundry roared to life, belching fire and plasma as engineers assembled the first fleet humanity would ever send beyond its own stars. Admiral Darius Cole watched from the observation deck. The shipyard spread beneath him like a city of light. "How long until we're ready?" he asked. 3 days for the first wave," his aide replied. "But there's a problem. The Council's scouts are watching us. If we launch, they'll know." Cole stared at the red horizon of Mars. "Then we'll let them watch," he said. "Let them believe it's all routine. The longer they underestimate us, the better." He turned away and opened a secure channel to Earth. "Madam President," he said, "the Titan array is online. Energy readings are stable." President Elara Hunt appeared on the holoscreen, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "Good," she said. "Keep all systems dark. No transmissions beyond the belt. If the Council wants silence, we'll give them silence." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the silence was beginning to make the aliens nervous. A counselor from the aquatic world of Renar thrashed its fins in frustration. "No communication, no trade, no signals. How do we deal with a species that simply vanishes?" A representative from a cybernetic race leaned forward, its eyes glowing red. "I have analyzed their networks. All outgoing transmissions from Earth have ceased. Not jammed, not blocked, ceased. Deliberately," the speaker flickered. "Are you suggesting this is strategy?" The cybernetic delegate nodded. "Every pattern points to control, not collapse." Vox slammed his fist against the railing. "Nonsense. They're frightened. They hide in their system like prey. Yet deep inside, even he felt unease. Far across the void, at the edge of the Sol system, a Valari scout ship drifted silently toward Neptune's orbit. Its captain, a creature with scaled hands and a cold heart, stared at the strange readings on his screen. "Report!" he barked. "Energy fluctuations across the asteroid belt, sir. Readings are erratic but massive, almost like..." The screen flickered. Static filled the room. The crew scrambled to restore the feed. The captain looked up through the viewport and froze. In the black emptiness of space, thousands of metallic shapes were awakening. They rose from the shadows of asteroids, glowing with faint blue light. The shapes aligned in perfect formation, forming a vast circular grid. Then, one by one, they began to hum. The scout's sensors overloaded. The captain barely had time to shout before the entire ship was swallowed by a blinding wave of electromagnetic energy. Hours later, fragments of the ship drifted back into open space. The only signal still active was a simple automated broadcast, a black box repeating the same distorted message. "They are awake." The transmission reached the council chamber the next morning. The room fell silent as the recording played. The moment the words echoed through the hall, the speaker's light dimmed. Vox leaned forward. "What is that supposed to mean?" No one answered. President Hunt watched the same message on a secure screen in her war room. Around her, the lights were dim. Generals and scientists stood ready. "So they've seen it," she said. "Good," one of her advisors frowned. "Madam President, the Council will see this as a threat." "They may act first," she nodded. "Let them." The Valari wanted a reaction. "We'll give them one, just not the one they expect." On Mars, Admiral Cole oversaw the Titan array's full activation. Thousands of satellites and drone ships now formed a living shield across the inner planets. The Singularity Engine, humanity's most dangerous experiment, pulsed quietly beneath the lunar surface. Back in the Council, the debates turned into shouting matches. "They're preparing for war," cried one delegate. "You cannot prove that," said another. "Perhaps they are simply protecting themselves." "The humans are unpredictable," said a third. "They should be isolated before they spread chaos." General Vox rose again, his voice cutting through the noise. "Enough! I will take my fleet and secure the Sol system myself." If they want to play soldiers, we will remind them who controls this galaxy. The speaker pulsed weakly. This council does not authorize war, General, Vox smiled. Then I will not call it war. I will call it discipline. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his armor glinting under the alien lights. The sound of his boots echoed long after he was gone. Back on Earth, in a vast command center beneath the Atlantic, the lights dimmed as a new transmission arrived. It was intercepted from the Volari military channels. Admiral Cole read the decrypted message aloud. Volari fleet preparing for approach to Sol. Estimated arrival, 5 days. The room went silent. Then Cole smiled slightly. 5 days, he said. Plenty of time. The president's voice came over the speakers. You know what to do, Admiral. Make sure they never reach orbit. Yes, ma'am. For the next few days, the galaxy watched in anticipation. Reporters from 100 worlds speculated about the fate of the humans. Some believed Earth would surrender. Others whispered that humanity had already built weapons the Council couldn't imagine, and through it all, Earth said nothing. On the 5th day, the stars near Neptune flickered again. The Volari fleet had arrived, hundreds of warships glowing with red light. Their commanders laughed as they prepared to enter human space. But on Mars, deep inside the Titan Command Center, Admiral Cole stood at the central console, his eyes fixed on the screen. Status, he said. Array locked. Singularity field stable, replied his officers. He nodded. Good. Let's show them what silence really means. In the darkness between planets, thousands of human ships powered up in perfect unison. Their engines glowed white, brighter than any star. The Volari fleet's sensors failed instantly, overwhelmed by the energy surge. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath, and then, for the first time in history, Earth spoke, not with words, but with power. The silence ended. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. The usual storm of noise, debate, and posturing was gone. Every eye in the vast hall turned toward the holographic projection floating in the air above the central dais. It showed the Sol system, glowing faintly against the black of space. Tiny red markers flickered near Neptune's orbit, Volari fleet signatures. The blue markers representing human positions were still almost invisible. The speaker's form wavered like mist. The Volari have entered Sol space, it said. No response from Earth, no signal. No defense. 1,000 alien voices whispered across the chamber. The delegates leaned forward, their expressions a mix of curiosity and unease. The humans had been silent for nearly a month. Now, everyone wanted to see what would happen next. General Carth Vox stood near the edge of the chamber, armor gleaming under the silver lights. He folded his arms and smirked. It will be over soon, he said to the council. The humans built their walls too high and hid behind them. But the Dominion does not ask for apologies twice. He turned toward the holographic map, watching as the red dots, the Volari warships, began to move inward, passing Neptune's orbit. By this time tomorrow, he said, Earth will kneel. On Mars, deep within the Titan Command Center, Admiral Darius Cole stood before a massive tactical display. The holographic image showed the Volari fleet approaching slowly. Around him, human officers worked silently, hands gliding across glowing control panels. Cole's voice was calm. All defense stations, stand by. Target systems locked, but do not engage until the signal. A young officer turned to him. Admiral, they're broadcasting demands. The Volari commander insists we surrender or face extermination. Cole looked at the officer and smiled faintly. Let them talk. They're already inside the trap. Above Neptune, the Volari fleet moved in tight formation. Hundreds of sleek ships with glowing crimson engines cut through the darkness. Their lead ship, the Spear of Dominion, was a floating fortress, bristling with plasma cannons. Inside, Captain Varen reported to General Vox through a holographic link. General, the humans have no visible defenses. No fleet, no stations, nothing but a few old satellites. Vox laughed. Good, burn them from orbit. Show the Council that no one defies the Dominion. The Volari fleet prepared to fire. Weapons charged, plasma cores brightened, and targeting locks flashed red. Then, just as the first command to fire was given, every screen across the fleet flickered. Static filled the displays. What's happening? the captain shouted. The ship's AI responded in a distorted voice. Unidentified interference. Signal breach. System override. The lights dimmed. For a brief second, the entire fleet floated in silence. Then space itself lit up. From the darkness of the asteroid belt, thousands of hidden human satellites came online at once. The Titan array awoke. Massive energy beams crossed the void, forming an invisible net that surrounded the Volari fleet. The humans had turned the asteroid belt into a living fortress. Admiral Cole's voice came through the encrypted network. Fire the array. Within seconds, concentrated kinetic slugs and plasma bursts shot from invisible platforms, moving faster than light could reflect. The first Volari cruiser vanished in a flash. The second was torn apart by a railgun projectile the size of a shuttle. In the council chamber, the delegates leapt from their seats as the live transmission from the Volari fleet turned chaotic. The speaker flickered wildly as static consumed the feed. "What is happening?" a reptilian delegate shouted. "The human system is weaponized!" Another cried. "The asteroids, they're armed." On the battlefield, the Volari fleet tried to regroup, but every command was jammed. Their navigation failed, communications went dark. The humans had taken control of the frequencies. The fleet drifted in confusion as the stars themselves seemed to pulse against them. On Mars, Admiral Cole gave the next order. "Deploy sentinels." From behind Mars and the moons of Jupiter, hundreds of small, triangular ships launched. They were drones, fast, silent, and deadly. Each carried adaptive AI cores that learned from every hit, every maneuver. They swarmed through the void like a living storm, cutting through the enemy's formation. The Volari ships opened fire wildly, but the drones were too fast. Explosions lit the dark sky in rapid succession. One by one, the proud ships of the Dominion fell. In the council chamber, the live feed stabilized for a few seconds. What the delegates saw froze them in disbelief. The Volari fleet was burning. Dozens of ships had been reduced to debris fields. The remaining vessels were retreating toward the outer system, pursued by glowing trails of human drones. The speaker's light dimmed to a faint glow. "Impossible," it whispered. "Humans have no fleet listed in the registry. No military capability." Vox's face twisted with rage. "They cheated! They were building weapons in secret," a delegate from the insectoid worlds hissed. "They didn't cheat, General. They prepared." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread faster than light. On trade networks, in military outposts, in the slums of distant colonies, everyone saw the footage of the Volari fleet being destroyed by a species that had joined the stars only a few decades ago. On Earth, President Ilara Hunt watched the data feed in silence. Around her, the room was filled with quiet awe. "What are the losses?" she asked. "Minimal," replied her defense minister. "They barely touched us. The Titan array worked exactly as planned," she nodded. "Then it begins." Above Jupiter, Admiral Cole stood aboard the Titan flagship, the largest ship humanity had ever built. He looked out over the scattered wreckage of the Volari fleet. "Transmit this message to the Council," he said. A moment later, every major communication network across the galaxy received a short broadcast. A single human voice spoke clearly. "We are not a colony. We are not subjects. We are a people united. You attacked us. You mocked us. You kicked one of ours before your council. Now you will remember us." The message ended with the image of Earth, blue, silent, and unbroken. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, demanding explanations, alliances, and retribution. Some wanted to strike back. Others wanted peace before humanity turned their weapons on them too. The speaker flickered weakly. "We must restore order." But General Vox was already storming out of the chamber, his fists clenched. "Order? There will be no order until Earth burns." Back in the Sol system, the battle was over. The space around Jupiter glittered with wreckage and drifting metal. Human drones moved silently among the debris, collecting data, mapping weaknesses. Inside the Titan flagship, Admiral Cole opened a private channel to the president. "They underestimated us, ma'am," he said. "Now they know what humanity is capable of." The president's voice was calm. "They thought silence meant fear. They'll learn silence means preparation. She paused, then added quietly, begin the next phase. Yes, ma'am. In the darkness beyond Mars, deep inside the asteroid belt, the Titan array began reconfiguring itself. Thousands of satellites turned in perfect synchronization, forming new formations. On Earth, factories shifted from defense to expansion. Humanity wasn't just defending anymore. They were planning their next move, and across the stars, the message repeated again and again in every language on every screen. They kicked our diplomat. Now we kick back. The chamber of the Galactic Council had never been this silent. Thousands of alien eyes in every shade and shape imaginable focused on the center floor where the human envoy stood. The air shimmered with faint blue light from translation fields and holographic feeds, projecting the tense faces of distant delegates. The Council, a ring of interstellar authority that ruled over half the galaxy, had seen wars, rebellions, and betrayals. But not this. Not humans standing tall after their diplomat had been humiliated by one of the galaxy's most feared generals. At the edge of the chamber, guards shifted uncomfortably, their armor plates clicking. The human representative, Captain Elias Ward, looked around the room. He could see disdain in the alien faces. They saw him as the representative of a primitive species, one that had only recently reached the stars. But there was something different in his gaze now. Behind his calm expression was the quiet fury of an entire planet. He stepped forward and activated a projection. A small blue sphere appeared, Earth glowing faintly against the void. This, he said, his voice steady, is our home, and you struck one of our own. You humiliated a diplomat who came here to seek peace. You think humans will bow? A murmur rippled through the chamber. One of the counselors, a tall creature with emerald scales, hissed, "You speak out of turn, human! You forget your place." Elias looked directly at him. "Our place," he said coldly, "is wherever we choose to stand." The statement hung in the air like a spark before a storm. A massive holographic display suddenly came to life across the chamber. Images of human fleets appeared, lines of warships mobilizing around the Sol system, carriers rising from Earth's surface, orbital stations powering up. The Galactic Council members turned their heads, their voices growing louder, confusion turning to alarm. Elias continued, "We do not seek war, but if war is brought to us, we will end it." He wasn't bluffing. The message had already been sent across the stars. Humanity was mobilizing. Every colony, every ship, every outpost was now preparing for what was coming. The Council had misjudged them. They thought humans were small, emotional creatures, easily swayed or broken. But humans were something different, something that learned, adapted, and fought harder than any species they had encountered. At the upper balcony, the same alien general who had struck the human diplomat, General Vorsk, watched silently. His heavy exosuit gleamed under the council lights. The memory of that moment, the human diplomat's face on the floor, replayed in his mind. He hadn't thought much of it at the time. Humans were weak, he'd told himself. They'd collapse under pressure. But now, watching the quiet fire in the human's eyes, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Elias turned his gaze toward Vorsk. Their eyes met across the chamber. "You wanted to show the galaxy your power," Elias said. "Now you'll see ours." Vorsk leaned forward. "You threaten the council itself?" Elias smiled faintly. "No, I remind the council that humans don't kneel." The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in dozens of languages, overlapping, chaotic. Some demanded sanctions against Earth, others urged restraint, fearful of what a war could unleash. But beneath it all, the tone had changed. No longer pity for a small species, but fear. The session ended in turmoil. Elias left the chamber escorted by guards, his face unreadable. He knew the message had been received, not just by the council, but by the galaxy itself, outside the headquarters. The stars of the galactic core shimmered like cold eyes watching history unfold. As the human envoy ship departed, encrypted transmissions began to flow. Across the outer systems, human fleets shifted from standby to active war readiness. Massive engines powered up on Mars. Orbital yards in the belt began launching drone ships. Earth's moon became the coordination hub for a network that stretched across human space, but not everyone in the council wanted war. In a dim-lit corridor deep beneath the chamber, two figures met in secret. One was a counselor named Tarith, whose species had long respected humanity's rising potential. The other was General Vorsk himself. "They won't back down," Tarith said quietly. "You struck a diplomat. To humans, that's not just an insult. It's a declaration." Vorsk exhaled heavily. "They are primitives. They can't stand against the council fleet. Are you sure?" Tarith replied. "You've seen what they built in less than a century. You've seen their numbers, their machines, their drive. If they decide this is a war, you may find your fleets burning before you even reach their world." Vorsk said nothing. He had seen the footage. Human warships lined in perfect formation, their weapons pulsing with energy, readings the Council's analysts couldn't quite classify. Humanity's technology had advanced far faster than expected. Some said they'd found something in their outer colonies, something ancient. Days later, the first incident occurred. A Council patrol vessel entered human-controlled space near Titan without authorization. It vanished. When a search team arrived, they found only fragments. The ship had been dismantled at the molecular level. A single message was left behind, broadcast across every frequency. "Earth is not yours to command." The galaxy reacted with disbelief. Some called it human arrogance. Others called it the beginning of something greater. Elias returned to Earth, welcomed as both a diplomat and a strategist. The United Earth Assembly gathered, their leaders solemn. The footage of the council session played before them. The image of Vorsk striking the diplomat was burned into every mind. President Hale spoke softly, but with steel in her tone. "They think they can silence us. They think they can humiliate us into submission. They're wrong. The council doesn't understand what it started. They will soon learn." Behind her, massive windows revealed the growing armada. Ships rising one by one from the atmosphere, forming a vast network of power and determination. Humanity was no longer a minor civilization. It was a storm preparing to break, and deep within the shadows of the Council, secret reports circulated. Human communications were being encrypted beyond any known decryption method. Probes sent into their space never returned. Something was happening on Earth. Something the Council couldn't see. In the final minutes of the part, Vorsk stood alone in his private chamber, staring at a hologram of Earth. He could still hear the echo of Elias Ward's words. "You wanted to show the galaxy your power. Now you'll see ours." Vorsk clenched his fists. For the first time, he wondered if he had made a mistake that could change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Thousands of alien voices roared in panic, argument, and disbelief as the central display flickered with images of human war fleets cutting through Council armadas like fire through dry grass. The massive ring-shaped structure that once symbolized unity now trembled under the weight of fear. The galaxy's rulers, who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant, were now realizing the truth. They had provoked something unstoppable. At the center of the chamber, the image of Earth's representative flickered to life. It was not a hologram of surrender, nor a plea for negotiation. It was Captain Elias Ward again, standing against a background of stars. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the cold certainty of victory. "This council once believed humanity was weak," he began, his voice echoing across the chamber. "You believed that striking one of us would show your strength. You believed fear would keep us silent. You were wrong." The chamber fell into silence. Alien delegates leaned forward, listening. Some trembled. Some glared. Others looked down, ashamed. Elias continued. "You called us primitive. You thought we were too small to matter. But humanity has faced extinction before. We survived our own wars, our own disasters. We learned. We adapted. And now we will teach the galaxy what it means to be human." Behind him, the hologram changed. Footage of council fleets burning in orbit above a distant gas giant. Dozens of massive alien warships shattered by precise human strikes. The human ships were smaller but faster, sharper, coordinated like a living organism. Their AI-controlled formations shifted in perfect rhythm. At the back of the chamber, General Vorsk stood motionless, watching the footage. His claws twitched, scraping the floor. He had once thought humans emotional and reckless. Now he saw what they truly were. Coldly logical when pushed to the edge, capable of rage so controlled that it became a weapon. Elias's voice cut through the silence. This war was not our choice. You brought it to our door, but we will end it, and we will decide what comes after. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the delegates. You will remember what happened here. You will remember the day humanity stopped kneeling. Then the hologram vanished. The chamber erupted again, but the sound now was not defiance. It was fear. Council guards scrambled to seal exits. Communication officers shouted updates. Planetary representatives demanded evacuations. The outer systems were falling one by one. Humanity's fleets had begun moving toward the galactic core. 3 days later, the council convened again. Only half the delegates had returned. The rest were dead, missing, or in hiding. General Vorsk entered the chamber, his armor scorched, his expression grim. We underestimated them, he said quietly to the remaining counselors. Their technology, it's beyond what we believed. They found something ancient, something that shouldn't exist. Counselor Tareth turned toward him. What are you saying? Vorsk pulled up a holographic map. Our spies on the edge of human space found fragments of an unknown artifact buried under the ice of Europa. It was dormant when they found it. But now, it's active. The hologram shifted, showing energy readings from the solar system, spikes of power from Earth, Mars and the Moon. Strange patterns formed in the data, like pulses of a heartbeat. They call it Project Dawn, Vorsk continued. It's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It's something else, something that changes the rules of war. Before the council could react, the holographic feed of the solar system came to life. A burst of energy erupted from Earth's orbit. The light expanded, shimmering like a veil across space. And then, silence. When the sensors recalibrated, every human fleet had vanished. The council members stared in shock. They're gone, someone whispered. Did they destroy themselves? Vorsk shook his head slowly. No, they're not gone. They moved, the hologram updated again, showing human fleets suddenly reappearing, not near Earth, but across multiple star systems simultaneously. It was impossible. No known drive could do that. But they had done it. Humanity had broken the laws of space. They've achieved displacement travel, Tareth murmured. They can be anywhere, anytime. The realization spread through the council like fire. The galaxy's balance of power had shattered. Every world was now within human reach. Then, without warning, a message appeared across every council communication line. It was a simple broadcast, marked with Earth's insignia. Cease your fleets. Stand down your weapons. Humanity will not destroy your worlds if you accept the new accord. The council as you know it is over. The age of domination ends now. Some council members refused. They ordered counterattacks. But the result was the same every time. Human ships appeared from nowhere, dismantled enemy fleets with surgical precision, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. In less than a week, the war that had begun with a single act of arrogance ended with the collapse of the most powerful government in the galaxy. Elias Ward returned to the council chamber once more. But this time he stood not as a representative, he stood as the arbiter of peace. Behind him stood a group of human officers and diplomats, their faces calm but watchful. The room that once echoed with alien arrogance now felt small under their gaze. Elias looked around. We are not here to conquer, he said. We are here to make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else again. This council ruled by fear. Humanity will rule by balance. He walked toward the center where the council's ancient seal had been carved into the floor, a circle representing unity among species. Elias placed his hand over it. The seal glowed blue, then changed, reshaping itself into a new emblem, a circle with a single rising line cutting through it, the symbol of Earth. From that day, the Galactic Council became something new, the alliance of free worlds, led not by domination but by cooperation. Humanity held the deciding voice, but they did not enslave the others. They taught them, shared their technology, and opened trade between worlds once divided by fear. But beneath the peace, there was still tension. Vorsk, stripped of his title but alive, watched from exile as human influence spread across the stars. He couldn't understand how a species so young could rise so high. On Earth, Elias Ward stood before a massive window in the orbital city of Ether Prime, gazing out at the stars. Behind him, a group of engineers reported that Project Dawn was still active, adapting, evolving. Whatever it was, it had linked itself to humanity's very essence. President Hale's voice came through the comms. "The Council's gone. The galaxy's quiet. But something tells me this is only the beginning." Elias nodded slowly. "It always is." Far beyond human space, in the deep void where no signal reached, a new light began to pulse, the same frequency as the one detected from Europa. Humanity had awakened something older than the galaxy itself, and now it was listening. The war was over. But the true story of humanity's place in the stars had just begun.